Hello and welcome to another episode of Soap Goes to the Oscars. This is episode 110, and it is the final episode of the main list of movies from the 1940 Oscar nominations. So this is the winner, and the movie is Rebecca, directed by Alfred Hitchcock. I'm recording this on September 20th, 2025. I started the movie Friday evening, finished it like 12:30 in the morning. So technically I finished it today. This was available, I think, in a couple of places. I had listed the Internet Archive, but I also found it on YouTube, and that's where I watched it because it was a little easier. So it was free, and that means that for this round of Oscars, everything was free once again. For the last two rounds, I've been able to. Now I did have to rent a couple this time, but I had Amazon credits, so I was able to get them for free. So I've had two rounds in a row, 20 movies that were of no cost. I think even the snub movie last time was free. So a few stats as to where we're at. So far, I've watched 108 movies. This is episode 110. There were two movies that I couldn't watch. So that's 17.7% of the total movies. Total minutes watched 11,546. That's 192 hours and 26 minutes, which is 8.02 days. Total spent is $267.12. Average spent is $2.47. Pretty good for 108 movies. I did buy a DVD player along the way. So if you add that in, my total is $299.18, and that brings the average up from $247 to $274. Oh, and I should say, so I've watched 108 of these. Of the total 610 movies that there are right now, I've previously seen 184 of them. So now my combined total, I've seen about 50% of the movies in my life, not during this run of watching. And I am still planning on rewatching those 184 movies. I actually already have rewatched one, which was The Wizard of Oz last time. Looking at how long this round took me to finish, I started on August 7th, 2025, and I finished on September 20th, 2025. So it took me 44 days. Last round took me 48, so that was a little bit of an improvement. The one before took me 72 days, so definitely getting better. The one before that took me 29 days. So, it's these 10 movie years are definitely tough to get through sometimes, depending on what happens in life. But that was actually 44 days is actually a little better than I thought it was going to be. So I'll take it. But yeah, that's where we're at with that stuff. Rebecca is a 1940 American romantic psychological thriller film directed by Alfred Hitchcock. It was Hitchcock's first American project and his first film under contract with producer David O. Selznick. Screenplay by Robert E. Sherwood and Joan Harrison, and adaptation by Philip MacDonald and Michael Hogan were based on the 1938 novel of the same name by Daphne du Maurier. The film stars Laurence Olivier as the brooding aristocratic widower Maxim de Winter and Joan Fontaine as the young, never-named woman who becomes his second wife. Yeah, they do just call her Mrs. de Winter the whole time. With Judith Anderson, George Sanders, and Gladys Cooper in supporting roles, the film is a gothic tale shot in black and white. Maxim de Winter's first wife, Rebecca, who died before the events of the film, is never seen. Her reputation and recollections of her, however, are a constant presence in the lives of Maxim, his new wife, and the housekeeper, Mrs. Danvers. Rebecca was theatrically released on April 12, 1940, to critical and commercial success. It received 11 nominations at the 13th Academy Awards, more than any other film that year. It won 2 awards, Best Picture and Best Cinematography, becoming the only film directed by Hitchcock to win the former award. In 2018, the film was selected for preservation in the United States National Film Registry. Cinematography by George Barnes, edited by Hal C. Kern and James E. Newcomb, music by Franz Waxman. Production company Selznick International Pictures, distributed by United Artists. Release dates March 21st, 1940 in Miami and April 12th, 1940 across the United States. with a runtime of 130 minutes. As I mentioned, there were 11 Academy Awards, so it won Outstanding Production. It was nominated for Best Director, Best Actor for Olivier, Best Actress for Joan Fontaine, Best Supporting Actress for Judith Anderson, Best Screenplay, Robert E. Sherwood and Joan Harrison, Best Art Direction, Black and White, Best Cinematography, Black and White, Best Film Editing, Best Original Score, and Best Special Effects. Did have some good, there was like some model work and stuff at the beginning and maybe a little bit in the middle too. That was pretty good. I mean, I could tell they were models, but they were, for the time, they were pretty decent. Oh, and one thing I read was Joan Fontaine is the sister of Olivia de Havilland, who was she's been in a lot of stuff, but she was in Gone with the Wind. She played the woman that married the guy that Scarlett O'Hara was in love with. I can't think of her name right now. I will look it up. Melanie Hamilton. Yeah, she married Ashley Wilkes. In the trivia on IMDb, I saw that she said when sister Olivia de Havilland was 9 years old, she made a will in which she stated, "I bequeath all my beauty to my younger sister Joan, since she has none." She was nice. Joan Fontaine, she reminded me of, it's not an exact match, she doesn't look exactly like her, but I was getting very much a Scarlett Johansson vibe. Like she could definitely play her if there was ever a film, film within a film or a movie about her. I think that Scarlett Johansson could play her. There's a bit in Wikipedia about censorship. As before Selznick purchased the rights to Rebecca, he submitted a synopsis of the novel to the Production Code Office. In the final act of the novel, Maxim de Winter confesses to the narrator that he shot Rebecca to death after she taunted him with her infidelities and claimed to be pregnant with another man's child. The discovery of Rebecca's body triggers an inquest into her death. Maxim avoids being charged despite Jack Favell, Rebecca's cousin and lover, suspecting his guilt and directing the police to investigate him. The Production Code Office described this as a clear violation of the production code since it apparently justifies and condones murder. Selznick proceeded with the adaptation despite this warning. Breen's office rejected an initial script outlining 3 chief issues, along with a long list of objectionable phrases to be excised, such as "for God's sake, you ass," and "lovers." As now written, it's the story of a murderer who is permitted to go off scot-free, was the first note. The second was the quite inescapable inference of sex perversion. Number 3, the repeated references in the dialogue to the alleged illicit relationship between Favell and the first Mrs. De Winter, and the frequent references to the alleged illegitimate child-to-be. To remedy the first issue, Breen demanded that either De Winter be punished for his crime or that Rebecca's death be rewritten to be accidental. The latter solution, which was ultimately adopted, had been first proposed by Hitchcock in a meeting with Breen and his sister at the Victor Hugo restaurant. Selznick, a strident critic of the production code, was annoyed at having to make this concession, complaining that the whole story of Rebecca is of a man who has murdered his wife, and it now becomes a story of a man who buried a wife who was killed accidentally. The sex perversion mentioned in the second point was in reference to the implied lesbian attraction felt by Mrs. Danvers toward Rebecca. Breen complained of the impropriety of Mrs. Danvers' description of Rebecca's physical attributes and her handling of the various garments, particularly the nightgown. Breen insisted that in the final cut there must be no suggestion whatever of a perverted relationship between Mrs. Danvers and Rebecca. Scholar David Boyd describes Danvers' attraction to Rebecca as inescapably clear to all but the most innocent of viewers. In the present day, though, it is unclear whether this interpretation would have been accessible to the audiences in 1940. Oh, clear to present day watchers, but may not have been then. Asked about it later in life, Judith Anderson denied intentionally playing Miss Danvers as a lesbian, stating that we never thought of such things at that time. The references to the extramarital affair between Favell and Rebecca de Winter remained explicit in the final cut of the film, as well as Rebecca's illegitimate pregnancy. So I'd like to say that was of a time long ago, but at the time that I'm recording this, Jimmy Kimmel was just pulled off the air by Disney because of something he said on the air. So, we may be going back to this time of censorship. before too long. I hope not, but that's where we're at, folks. So anyway, the movie. This one was pretty good. I think it was a little, my usual complaint. It was 2 hours and 10 minutes. It was a little too long. Even at just 10 minutes shorter, it might have helped a little bit. I did. It was late. I was tired. I did lose focus a couple of times at, what were probably somewhat critical moments. There was a moment where the new Mrs. De Winter meets Favel, and I think I totally zoned out for that. But it was good. They were all good. It's sort of a weird thing to watch a movie at this time. Just he didn't treat the new Mrs. De Winter badly, but Laurence Olivier, just the way that they, a person of his standing would have treated his wife at that time, just almost as if she's an accessory and, like she manages the house and she should be dealing with issues of the house and things like that. And it's just not surprising at all. It's just a very weird kind of thing to see. It doesn't, make me dislike the movie. It's just a strange thing. Not anything that is part of my world. So I mean, it was very good. She was very good. Joan Fontaine. He was good, but he, was sort of stuffy and annoying at times to me. But this is I think well, so I did see that he was in The Bounty with Mel Gibson and Anthony Hopkins, but I don't really remember him from that. So this is the first like real thing I think I've seen Laurence Olivier in, where he played a significant role. So yeah, everybody was good. The one guy that played Favel, can't remember what, George Sanders maybe. He was in the other movie, The Foreign Correspondent, that was also directed by Hitchcock and was a nominee this year as well. He liked to reuse people like a lot of directors do. Joan Fontaine, I think, is in the next year's Oscars. There's a movie called Suspicion, and she's in that. I think she won the Oscar for that. Yeah, it was pretty good. I gave it 4 stars on Letterboxd. It was not my favorite of the bunch. If we're doing a little bit of a review here, I think, The Dictator, I gave 5 stars. And what else did I give 4 here? Philadelphia Story, I gave 4. Grapes of Wrath, I gave 4. All This in Heaven 2, I gave 3.5. I think, Great Dictator, I liked a lot, or very much. Philadelphia Story, I would probably say Great Dictator and Philadelphia Story are my favorites of this bunch. So while Rebecca was very good, it wasn't my favorite. That doesn't necessarily mean it didn't deserve to win at the time, but I don't know that I would have picked it as the top movie. I think that's it. I will have a snubbed movie for 1940, and then we'll move on to 1941. Got another 10 movies for that year to get through. One of them being one of my favorite movies, a movie that I have seen, and that's Citizen Kane. So haven't seen that one in a while. So looking forward to watching it again. And I already know what I'm going to give it. And I probably already think that should have won. But that's hindsight, right? So we'll see how it goes. Maybe there's something better in here. I haven't seen any of these other movies, so we'll see. Hey, don't forget to check us out on Instagram at MovieStubs4, where I post about this. I don't really post a lot. I just post a link to the podcast on my story and an image of it on my main Instagram for that account. But you can leave a comment there if you want. Anyway, that's it. See you next time.